My name is Edgar. I'm a Professor of Theological Studies at Asbury Theological Seminary, and I teach as one of the courses, a course on the relationship of science and faith, and it's got a particular focus upon understanding the changes that are taking place scientifically with the human person, so it has a lot to do with anthropology. My interest in science began fairly early. I did study chemistry at a tertiary level, but I never worked as an industrial chemist because I felt the Lord calling me into theological studies. And so for quite a number of years my interest in science was quite dormant. But God never wastes anything, and that experience and that interest in science came back as I was teaching theology. And it came back for a number of reasons, and I think in fact there are probably 4 aspects of science that I think have been very important in shaping my thinking. The first is that it became obvious that a scientific way of thinking was very important for understanding our culture as a whole. We tend to think scientifically in so many areas of life, and it seemed necessary to explore that from a theological point of view. Secondly, I think the question of science is very important in terms of ethics. I did my PhD on theological anthropology, a study of the person and the nature of the soul. And this led into quite a few ethical issues ultimately, particularly relating to the human person. Things like the status of the embryo, issues to do with IVF and surrogacy. And then there are questions to do with the person and evolution. And then you move on and look at what science is doing in terms of neurology and all sorts of other kinds of medical technology, and the changes that are taking place in the actual physical and emotional and mental form of the human person. And it seemed very important to be exploring those. The third area where I think that I find the study of science to be critically important is in looking to the future. Again, particularly in terms of anthropology and the human person. People talk today about the possibility of a post-human form of life, or transhumanism. And I think we need to be looking ahead. There's no point in letting the world get ahead of the way that we as Christians are thinking. And the fourth reason for being involved in science is purely that theological one, that in teaching theology it was obvious that science and scientific ways of thinking were influencing students and myself and everybody in the way that they did theology. And it seemed to me that the reverse should be true as well, and that theology should influence the way that people think scientifically. And so I've got quite an interest in that formal area of the study of the relationship of science and theology. So for all of those reasons, I think it's very important for Christians to be involved in understanding science in our world today.